Hezekiah family, he's the Most High, holy and eternal, King of all kings, the only true, wise and living God, the Almighty. Well, happy Sabbath to you. So, we should have been coming on tonight with a Sabbath session, as we normally do. I've had a few issues today with my technology, so unfortunately the session's going to go out late, unfortunately. So my apologies for that. But it should be quite an exciting session, so do look out for it. Really speaking of, we're looking at where we currently are now and along the lines of what we've been exploring on our sister stream of content, Nation of Israel, around navigating our path to return and what Yahuwah does really require of us at this time. Because we know he's said that we must be born again also. So looking really at the case for Christ, because there is still in some aspects really of Yashrael, still some who, well, are not altogether amenable really to Christ. So looking at really at the case for Christ, looking really at the unfolding of the gospel, the born again experience, which we know is also called the way of the cross, and understanding what that now means for us as part of our Yashraelite awakening, and how that does actually fit into our return to the covenant and laws as well. And just looking at our overall context as we find ourselves where we are today, and now also the unfolding of, or the reinitializations we've said, of a new cycle of history also. So we're currently at a very pivotal point and time in our history, in our existence, as we now plan for Yeshua's return, and also to do a prophetic flow as well. We are also seeing the unfolding of judgment continuing in the realm of the kingdom of darkness, amongst the tabernacle systems, particularly for a number of things that have been going on really for generations really. So I'd encourage, as I've said, believers to be quite vigilant at this time, because Yahuwah is exposing many things. So we have actually said, and I make no apologies for saying this, that the tabernacle systems, as we can see, as Revelations 18:13 does tell us, does operate, well, a number of trades, a legitimate sort of front trade in commodities, goods, services, legitimately, and also two other more unsalubrious trades, one's in the slaves of men and the other in the solical trade as well. But the solical trade is actually wider, really. So the solical trade implies not only people transacting in their own souls for personal advantage, or some who do sell their souls to Satan or to that kingdom for personal advantage, but also there's a wider trade also in the attributes, destinies, spiritual inheritances of others also. It's also part of that trade. And this is the more insidious side of this particular beast system. And the reason why I think we need to talk more about it really as a system, as a trade, because the things that you have seen really transpiring, and I know I've actually spoken about this as part of my own personal testimony, but the things I've encountered really around this overall agenda have also happened to many of you as well. So if you live in these systems at all, you can be assured that they are merchandising in your spiritual inheritance in some form. It is the actual nature of the actual construct in and of itself, and accounts to some extent, to a great extent, to the overall prosperity of what we currently see as well. Some people actually exhibit. So that's actually just the actual nature of it. So where it's quite a sweeping statement to make. But I think perhaps one of the most saddening aspects of it, culturally for me, is the way they have made it acceptable and even glamorized it. So we have a whole franchise of movies around things like James Bond and the Thomas Crown affair as well, these sorts of things. And these sorts of movies do really serve to make the whole agenda of spying, sabotage, subterfuge on others look morally acceptable. And particularly if you live in the UK, I think the whole country have bought that. And it's had the kind of knock-on effect that no one sees it as a problem or as even wrong, morally or otherwise, to spy on their neighbours or to eavesdrop and report on into others and gossip behind their backs. Yeah, so that's all a huge part of it, because of course it all adds to the general. But you have to kind of dehumanize, in a sense, the individual you're actually targeting in order to do these things. You have to build up a justification as to why it seems deserved in some way that you should do these things. So the actual background chatter that's actually go on in chat rooms, WhatsApp groups, the rest, does kind of add to that whole overall building of that whole dehumanizing agenda. And then, to the extent where people then feel justified in then turning intentions into reality and taking actual literal action, either spiritually or ultimately physically, against certain people. So this also is actually also an aspect of that overall trade as well. So I was actually looking at the internet earlier today and seeing where, I think it's actually a PI, a private investigator, he was actually saying that there's an algorithm on a particular application online has been flashing up to people that they have actual hidden inheritances and assets. And he was actually saying that if you see those sorts of notifications, you should actually investigate them further, because there could be something there that you don't know anything about. But this could also be an aspect also of this particular agenda as well, of scammers, essentially, trying to capitalize on the actual inheritances of others also. So they hunt for both spiritual inheritances and also literal inheritances. I can't say the word. Inheritances also. So this is what we're actually seeing Yahuwah pronounce judgment on. And as I say, he actually removed these systems in 2020. And they've been trying to reinstate them. But I'm sure they must be noticing that their former modes of working are no longer working. This is due to the fact we are now in a whole new global order, a new working of systems and of things. And perhaps a worrying thing about our current position, where we currently are, is just the sheer levels of ignorance that seem to prevail. Because Yahuwah is actually trying to bring to the front those who now have the knowledge and understanding to lead and to understand the way to navigate the new order of things. And this constituency is trying to conclude that because they either don't like the way they look or they're not part of their club, that they're going to actually fight and resist what Yahuwah is actually doing. But what that's going to mean is that ultimately they're actually going to destroy it's going to have very destructive effects on their own selves. Because whenever Yahuwah has done moves like this, it's always had existential consequences for all the other peoples who are actually associated or living at that time. So take Joseph, for example. So we can see very much he was actually sent ahead of his family to Egypt to preserve the lives of his family ultimately. And had he not gone ahead, they wouldn't have survived the famine at all. So this is really attests to the actual nature of what Yahuwah is actually now trying to do. And there's a whole constituency that are actively fighting against and resisting and trying to remove it, and trying to think that they can actually either try to steal or take the place of the individual Yahuwah is actually trying to bring to the fore. But ultimately, they're going to really just incur their own judgment, ultimately, and find themselves removed. It's a very, very serious thing to fall into the hands of the living God, and I'm finding it quite incredulous to see, well, how quickly people are prepared to put themselves into that position, having no idea of what they're actually dealing with. Is quite incredible to me. Because as I've said previously, they could die with some of the things they're actually doing at the moment. I'm not quite sure they don't seem to believe that, but so I've kind of just said I'll let the chips fall where they will. Not that I wish that on anybody, of course. I've actually tried to alert and warn people about this, but it's all fallen on deaf ears. So that's as it is. So as I say, we'll come on to talk more about these sorts of themes. So apologies that the session hasn't gone out on time today. I will actually try to get my phone sorted out and get it recorded as quickly as I possibly can. So do bear with me. Oh, and also because, of course, as you're aware, I know many of you are aware that you is actually calling me now to come out more, be seen more, and do more really around the ministry and the actual messages he's actually given me to actually speak and talk about. So I also do plan to do that. I do actually need to invest possibly in my technology to make that possible. But I do actually intend to actually now come to the fore and actually do that more. Oh, and incidentally, if you want to actually contribute to our tech replacement stroke upgrade, then I'll put a link in the actual comments field of this video. Please do contribute to that cause as well. Would be much appreciated. So we'll leave it there for now. So as I say, look out for our next Sabbath session. We should be with you shortly. So apologies, it's not going out on time. I've had a very interesting day today. Let's put it at that. So to God be the glory. Bye for now.